Well, I think we'll go ahead and get started. This is the role of ROR in national research strategies, and we're going to hear from several presenters in Japan, Australia, and Korea. And this is the ROR Annual Community Meeting, the 7th edition thereof. Here's our agenda for today. I'll go over just a few logistical notes, and then I'm going to give a very brief introduction to ROR, just in case some of you are not familiar with it. We won't spend too long on that, but it's always nice to get a brief refresher. Then we'll hear from Kazuhiro Hayashi of NISTEP in Japan, and then we'll hear from Clare Nulley-Valdes of the Australian Research Council, and finally we'll hear from Jungwoo Lee of KISTI in Korea. And then we should have plenty of time for questions, but also as we go along, do feel free to post questions in the chat, and some of us can monitor those and answer them as they come up. So we hold the ROR annual meeting every year, usually around this same time, either at the end of January or the beginning of February, just to commemorate ROR's launch in 2019 at that time of year. We are recording this session, and we will distribute the recording and the slides afterward to all registrants. And in addition, we will post them publicly on our YouTube channel and our website. We do ask you to abide by our code of conduct, and we'll share the link to that in case you haven't read that. Your video is entirely optional, but we do ask you to please mute when speaking. Note that this is a meeting and not a webinar, so you're fully free to unmute yourself or to talk in the chat during the question and answer period. So we encourage you to do that. We are aware that we hold meetings in English, but that we try to very much encourage multilingual participants. So if you do click the show captions feature in Zoom, you should be hopefully able to follow along in your own language. And then additionally, we would encourage you to look at the recording or the slides afterward and generate a transcript from that in whatever language is most comfortable for you. Feel free to use Zoom reactions, post questions and comments, and of course we always like to see lion emojis. So a brief introduction to ROR, the Research Organization Registry. We are a global community-led registry of open persistent identifiers for research organizations and funders. We're established, widely adopted, entirely free, no-cost service, and we're becoming really a standard in scholarly communication and scholarly publishing. Here is a sample ROR record. You can see I've chosen here a Korean organization, the Seoul National University of Science and Technology. You can see here many alternate names for this organization, including the alias Seoul Tech, which will become important in a moment. You can look up any ROR record openly on the web by going to ror.org/search. And we currently include over 120,000 research organizations from around the world. And I might add that when we launched in 2019, it was something, I may not have the exact number correct, but something like 95,000. It was under 100,000. So just in the course of 7 years, we've added many organizations. And additionally, we've really enriched those existing records that we have quite a lot. All our metadata and data is public domain. It is free of cost and available in multiple formats. So what is the problem that ROR solves? Well, there are many problems that ROR solves, but here is just one of them. Organizations go by different names. So just in English, let alone in Korean, this one institution is known both as the Seoul National University of Science and Technology and as Seoul Tech. When scholarly communication systems, including discovery systems, accept organization names only as free text, you wind up with many organization variants, which, among other problems, makes discovery of research produced by that institution difficult to do. It's unreliable. You get different results depending on which version of a name you search for, and that makes it very difficult to associate research with institutions. So because both of those name variants and, of course, variants in other languages are all collected within one ROR ID, systems like OpenAlex that use ROR ID for an institutional model can make sure that all of those name variants are tied to the single entity. And it means that the results for either of these strings are going to be the same. They're always going to be the same number of results for both of those name variants. You may know of other persistent identifiers. The DOI, the Digital Object Identifier, identifies research outputs. That was really the first one that was created. ORCID is a bit more recent than that, and ORCID, of course, identifies researchers. And ROR is the most recent, and we identify research organizations, which, as I mentioned, does include funding organizations. So ROR enables national research tracking, among other things, which is the topic of today's panel. By making information about research organizations clean, normalized, and easy to exchange, that means that national research entities can reliably find journal articles, data sets, and other research outputs associated with these organizations, the organizations belonging into a particular country. I know that a lot of countries are particularly interested in tracking international collaborations, and ROR, I think, has proved very valuable for that. So it's not just like what research has our country produced, but what other countries, what other institutions are the researchers in our country collaborating with. We showed this slide at our general community update session yesterday. And this is really just for 2025. Our wonderful product lead, Adam Buttrick, who is here with us today, did an analysis of all the requests we get for additions and changes to ROR in 2025. And you can see that by far the greatest growth in 2025 has been in the Asia Pacific region. ROR inherited data from a previous organization identifier project called GRID, and that project tended to emphasize American and European organizations. So there's certainly been far less growth in those just because we already did have good coverage of research organizations in that area of the world. But we are always working to improve coverage in all the places where we know we can do better. And you'll hear today about at least two of those projects. So with that, I will turn things over to Kazuhiro Hayashi and hear what he has to say. Thank you.
Hi. May I start? Okay. And thank you for kind introduction. I am Kazuhiro Hayashi from the National Institute of Science and Technology Policy. I'm going to talk about the ROR and Japan. And my current position is Principal Senior Fellow of National Institute of Science and Technology Policy. But also, I am an associate member of Science Council of Japan and also a member of ORCID Research Advisory Committee. So I'd like to introduce some whole picture of Japan's PID system, focusing on ROR. This is an outline of my presentation. Number one is the PID Japan. It is associated with my experience as an open science researcher who once handled IDs with developing e-journal and reviewing systems since 1995. So I have really associated with DOI, ORCID, and ROR, and other PID things. And secondly, I'd like to introduce NISTEP dictionary and the collaboration with ROR as a principal senior fellow. And this part is with courtesy of Masatsura Igami and Natsuo Nodera, who presented the ROR annual meeting last year. So, and finally, third point is a proposal. I would like to introduce a proposal for the next Science and Technology Innovation Basic Plan from Science Council of Japan. I was happy to chair that committee. So I'd like to introduce a whole picture of Japan's PID strategy as an academic committee. So here is a chart of kind of cheat sheet of PID in Japan. We have a rather long history of local PID, and this chart is from the PID Fest. Maybe most of attendees know about the PID Fest. originated by the Pida Paluda. But anyway, so we already developed the ID for researchers as a research map and alert, and funding ID for Kaken, or the NISTEP introduces a domestic systematic number for funding items. And for research output, we already have a long history across FDI, DOI, and Japan Science and Technology Agency developed a JALC DOI for the domestic, let's say, Japanese PID for the Japanese literature. And I would like to introduce briefly about the research organization ID afterward. And these local PIDs preceded the global PIDs, but not completely interoperable. Let's take a look at the right-hand picture. Here is my report in 2009 regarding about how to integrate author ID into one ID to have compatibility internationally. And this chart is showing a kind of a linkage of PIDs will show the trend of the science technology, and it would be useful for the research evaluation, something like that. Anyway, we Japan PID things are domestically sold, sustainable, but not interoperable globally. That's a crucial point in Japan. And and here is a chart, the next slide for the NISTEP dictionary and ROR. So here is outline and the features of NISTEP dictionary for organizations. So we developed my colleague developed a core dictionary supporting NISTEP's compilation of basic data on research activities in Japan, and it enables research managers and the researchers to compare institutional performance and assess the impact of R&D investment. Especially, we are keen on the input-output analysis for developing a science and technology policy. And the dictionary systematically covers major R&D performing organizations, including universities, public research institutions, local governments, companies, and not non-profit, as well as key subsidiaries. It's hard to pronounce in from Japanese. But anyway, it includes 44 universities, 4 inter-university research institutions, and major national research institutions, and links this continued organization to successors where applicable. It has been updated annually since 2012 with an English version available from fiscal year 2020. And here's a breaking news that very recently the updated version of our dictionary is introduced into the ROR. Adam may introduce afterward, but anyway, so we are happy to continue to collaborate with ROR. And this is just, I'm not going into the detail, but there are this is a figure of the numbers of the organization we handled. And the numbers go over the 10,000 active, and we are still updating this, and maybe, maintenance is more crucial than developing the dictionary. So, so we have somewhat struggle for keeping this in the cutting edge or up to date manner. And sorry. Oh, yeah, here's why we are planning to use ROR. So, as I said, just introduced before, our PID system is very localized. So, we try to promote overseas use of NISTEP dictionaries at first. And of course, we'd like to disseminate overall in Japan to, this is my personal opinion, but anyway, we should be a kind of a node of a network of IDs to have a high quality data of ID together with international initiatives such as ROR. Yeah. So, and finally, I changed my hat again and to introduce a proposal for the next Science and Technology Innovation Basic Plan from Science Council of Japan. And yeah, it is literally recommendation for the basic plan. And we described the 4 main pillars for the proposal. And due to the time limitation, I would like to focus on the third one. Third one is to promoting the accumulation and open access of knowledge and data as public goods to stimulate scientific and technological innovation through advances in data science. And the second item clearly stated that enhancing the visibility of Japanese research through the formulation of a cross-ministerial national strategy on persistent identifiers. I literally wrote this part. And the next chart is kind of the whole picture for that proposal. I draw this chart by hand from scratch, and for visualization of research activities and their contributions, and to link researchers, institutions, and funding and outcomes, we should prepare for the PID ecosystem associated with national initiative. So I'm not going into detail, but anyway, so here is a clearly quote. I clearly quoted ROR as a funding agency or research organization together with ORCID, Crossref, RAID. And here's another potential of the ideas to be a PID to visualize the research activity itself in a whole picture. And that's for the multidimensional recognition and analysis of research contributions, also multidimensional recognition and analysis of research outputs. And it is also for the application of research evaluation, research integrity, and of course it is for the research promotion. And now, you know, these kind of things are hacked by the AI in any way, so that anyway, it would be advanced and advancing recognition and analysis with AI. So this is a whole picture from the academic community to the PID. And so here's a summary picture, a summary slide. And the PID Japan is domestically solved, sustainable, but not interpretable globally for many years. And now NISTEP has developed a dictionary for the organization, and we are keeping the collaboration with ROR. And finally, from academic community, we propose a PID, a national PID clearly, and we quoted ROR as an example. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. That's really fascinating to hear. We will keep most questions to the end, but I guess I do have one question about what the timeline is for the next STI basic plan to be adopted.
That's a very good question, and it is about to release, and we are on the public comment. And but unfortunately, well, science and technology basic plan is a kind of a whole picture, especially for the policymakers and citizens. So that here there is no description of PID, but we set AI for science as a main pillar of the next science and technology basic plan. And here is a lot of things described related to the PID matter. So, and my next mission is quoting those basic plan. We should develop the annual policy document, and that hopefully that would include something related to the PID matters more clearly in details. Yeah.
Well, that's fascinating to hear. Thank you so much. We will move on now to hear about ROR in Australia. And as Clare is going to tell us, Australia's national PID strategy, I think, has been one that many nations have wanted to emulate. So, Clare?
Thank you so much, Amanda. So I'm delighted to be here talking to you about how the Australian Research Council is using RORs or planning to use RORs and other persistent identifiers for research evaluation. So first of all, I'll talk a little bit about the ARC. Who are we? We are the primary funder of basic and non-medical research in Australia and represent roughly 7% of the total government investment in research in Australia. But in addition to being a funder, the ARC also conducts Australia's national research evaluation activity. This previously has been Excellence in Research for Australia, or ERA, but we are currently developing a new approach to national research evaluation, which I'll talk more on later. So with the context of the ARC in mind, why persistent identifiers like RORs? And the answer lies primarily in impact. As the government funder, demonstrating the value of research investment underpins everything we do. And this means showing how Australian research delivers evidence and outcomes that grow industry investment, boost research and development across the country. But it also involves highlighting how research shapes decisions, improves services, influences policies, and helps Australians find and apply research to real-world challenges. Persistent identifiers, such as RORs, are the central puzzle piece to being able to track and measure the impact of research funding and the impact of research overall. This is not only important for understanding what we fund, but is absolutely critical for understanding the performance at a national level. And persistent identifiers also have the additional benefit of reducing administrative burden to the sector in evaluation processes. Going back to research evaluation, ERA, which was Australia's national research evaluation, was introduced in 2010. However, following significant feedback from the research sector in Australia, that ERA had really delivered on its initial purpose, which was to increase the quality of Australian research, and now is excessively burdensome comparatively to the value that it delivered. As a result, the Australian Minister for Education discontinued ERA in 2023. And since then, we have been working on the development of a new research insights capability proposed in August 2025, a new framework or an early stage of a new framework, which is up on the slide here. So we are seeking to move away from an evaluation framework that ranks and rates institutions to a system that allows cross-sector comparison, but takes a really broad level view to think about what is working, what is impactful, what deserves more attention in the Australian research ecosystem. What we've proposed so far is the development of 3 interconnected but distinct components. The first one is data dashboards, which will be user-friendly, interactive online dashboards designed to be open, accessible, and useful, with data about the Australian research sector that can be filtered in ways that's relevant to users. The next is in-depth and bespoke reports, which would be short-form reports designed to be responsive to government priorities, sector interests, and identified information gaps. Each report would explore a research area, discipline, or issue in detail and combine data analysis that we would get from things such as persistent identifiers with qualitative case studies. And then finally, we're proposing a state of the research environment report, which would be a flagship publication and would really highlight the big picture of the Australian research sector's strengths, needs, and opportunities in a way that's meaningful for a range of users, such as researchers, policymakers, institutions, and the wider public. We spent the latter part of 2025 consulting with the Australian research sector on what we've proposed. And through this engagement, we've received some really fantastic key feedback. The first thing that I want to highlight from our feedback is that there's really strong support for this kind of dynamic data-driven evaluation that's underpinned by open data practices and methodology. There's really strong support for using a wide variety of data sources, including research repositories, as a data source. And there's really strong support for evaluation without ranking and ratings, and an acknowledgement that that really helps progress responsible research assessment in Australia. And finally, there is support for those very principles of responsible research assessment, their principles, Indigenous data sovereignty, and persistent identifiers. But there was also quite a number of challenges, which is not surprising, I'm sure, to anybody here today, raised by the sector from what we've proposed. And I'm highlighting just a few of the things that people raised here, but one of them is, how do we incorporate diverse publishing types and practices, particularly those covered by disciplines that participate in creative practice or grey literature, which we know is super important for impact. Then another one is that we really need to consider the balance between burden to the sector and benefit of national evaluation at a time when around the world research institutions are feeling the squeeze. We need to really also be very careful that we have clear guidance on how to use what we're proposing, with guidance to support data collection and how to interpret findings. And the final part, which I think is great, probably my favorite bit of feedback / challenge, is that the sector really wants to work with us, which is what we want as well, so that we can draw on expert advice to consider solutions to some of these challenges. So I guess, what does all of this have to do with RORs and persistent identifiers more broadly? And the answer lies, as I mentioned earlier, in impact and the ability to track research, but also its data, or specifically metadata about research activity. Australia's previous research framework conducted a really comprehensive retrospective data collection process. But a key proposed feature of the research insights capability is that it would collect data in as real time as possible, and that data would be collected from existing data sets wherever possible to really try and reduce that burden. But to be able to do that, we need access to high quality, trusted, interoperable data about the research sector, both in Australia and internationally, to allow us to explore research activity, collaborations, and impact. And as I said, we need this data to be trusted, and we need it to clearly identify who and from where the research was conducted, with things like the research institution clearly and identified. And that's really where RORs come in, and their ability to identify between institutions that have a similar name, which is, I mean, there's so many examples, especially, in Australia, like we have Newcastle University, for example, or Victoria University. These are not unique globally names that are easily confusable on the international research stage. As Amanda mentioned, Australia has a national PID strategy, and I am such a champion of this strategy. I believe that the work that I have been doing in my organisation simply wouldn't be possible without this national strategy. The strategy was led by the Australian Research Data Commons, otherwise known as ARDC, with input from across the Australian sector, including funders, researchers, and government. And the strategy has provided Australia with a unified framework for the whole of the sector to engage with PID uptake and use. As previously mentioned, the ARC accounts for roughly 7% of research funding and we are the primary funder of basic research across all disciplines except medical research. But we are very conscious that while we have some influence in the sector in Australia, action by funders is not enough to drive real sector change. PID uptake in Australia and indeed globally is a shared responsibility between government, funders, research institutions, publishers, and individual researchers. The National PID Strategy and Roadmap has enabled the ARC to progress with further PID integration in a way that's aligned with collective sector movement, meaning that we're working in collaboration, not isolation, towards sector-wide and sector-led common goals. Furthermore, the national strategy has helped us identify 5 priority PIDs, which are listed on this slide. And they really just help us to focus as a nation on where we want to put our resources and what we think from the PID landscape is going to help us the most. And those are ORCIDs for researchers, DOIs for outputs and grants, RORs for institutions, RAIDs for projects, and ISGN for physical science samples. In response to the National PID Strategy, the ARC published in August 2025 5 key actions that we are going to take as an agency to increase PID integration in NCGP, which is the National Competitive Grants Program in Australia that we run. And we're going to start minting digital object identifiers for ARC grants. We are going to link, and in fact, as I'll say on the next slide, we have already linked administrative organizations with their RORs in our research management system. We're going to require ARC grantees to supply their ORCID during the establishment phase of successful grants. We're going to write back to researchers' ORCID profiles, those grant DOIs that we will mint. And I am busy working on an ARC fair data policy, which we hope, push fingers for me, everybody, will come out this year. Since publishing our PID action plan, we have, as I mentioned, already actioned linking the administrating organizations, which is all the institutions in Australia, to their RORs in our research management system. We're really progressing arrangements for allowing us to mint DOIs, and I think that would definitely happen in 2026. And we are also in the final stages of finalizing an update to the ARC's open access policy, which will include requiring researchers to use the ARC's ROR when acknowledging that we gave them funding. And I think that's going to have such a big difference to our ability to track as a funder. So much more so than whether they put, the Australian Research Council or ARC and you have to find it. I think this is going to be really powerful in helping us track our funding. And we're also going to tighten the requirements that we previously had, which currently say that if there's a DOI, you must provide it for an output. To say you must provide a DOI for an output when they report their outputs in their final report. So that's it for me. That's where we're at in Australia. I know, Amanda, you said we'll wait for questions at the end, so feel free to disregard the question mark on this slide. But thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Claire. That was really wonderful. And I hadn't known that you had incorporated ROR into your own research information management system. So that's great to hear. And of course, creating those DOIs for grants that you've given makes you very trendy. It makes you on the cutting edge of best practice. As I mentioned, if you do have questions for Claire, you can certainly post those in the chat, and Claire, I'm sure, can take a look at those, but we can also save them for the end as well. But meanwhile, I will turn things over to Jungwoo Lee, who is going to talk to us about, in particular, a project that ROR and KISTI undertook together. Jungwoo?
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Jungwoo from the Center for Global R&D Data Analysis, KISTI, South Korea. Thank you for giving me the chance to speak today. Yes, this is first slide. And in this talk, I will share how we use ROR in real research and data work, and why ROR is important for sustainable global S&T analysis. Yes. KISTI is one of the 23 government-funded research institutes in Korea. We are part of the National Research Council of Science and Technology, and we support science, technology, and industrial development. We operate large-scale research infrastructure, including supercomputing and data platforms, and also we develop AI for science. And yes, I belong to CGRD, as I told you. This slide shows our objective. We are building a global system to monitor and analyze science and technology by linking many different data sources. This is direct research and development, and we build the system by ourselves, it means. In practice, we focus on 4 main things. As you can see below, we link global data, and we build analysis models. We produce insights for decision making, and we share data and models openly. And I will explain this in more detail on next slide. Yes, on the left, the slide shows a wide range of data sources, including publications, patents, research funding, and policy documents. They are drawn from both commercial and open sources, and also created data by KISTI. With these various data sources, we conduct data fusing. At the center of this data fusion-based infrastructure, we analyze data through specific analytical perspectives or entities. This includes countries, organizations, researchers, and also technology field. So among them, organizations often serve as a key analytical perspective. So based on this structure, we first build analysis-ready data sets organized around countries, organizations, researchers, and technology fields. So we compute scientometric indicators and apply decision support models, as well as text and technology classification models. So the entire process begins with entity-centric analytical questions in the mind of decision makers. For example, how strong are our companies or our institutions' research capabilities in the field of AI? So to respond that needs, using this system, we conduct analysis, and after that analysis, we published report on global S&T issues, and we also built KISTI Science and Technology Scoreboard together with Leiden CWTS. And this scoreboard compares Korean research organizations in the global science and technology landscape. This work depends very strongly on correct organization data. So why organizational identity matters? Now I would like to explain why it matters. We tried to build our own global registry before, but this turned to be very difficult. We had strong coverage for Korean organizations, but coverage for international organization, that was a gap. So organization names appear in many forms, such as abbreviations, spelling variants, and sometimes different languages. Even for KISTI, there are many variants shown on this slide. For us, it is easy to recognize that these names refer to the same organization, but for organizations on the other side of the world, this is much harder for us. And another challenge is organization data are not static. They evolve over time through institutional restructuring, establishment, mergers, and closures. In Korea, demographic decline has begun to accelerate mergers and closures of regional universities since 2025. So we should adjust these changes into our registry and ROR as well. So from 2022 to 2024, we run some important lessons. We built our own registry for Korean organizations from Web of Science and PESCAT, but it required huge effort to manage name variants and errors to ensure accurate classification. Extending this Korea-centric approach to other countries proved highly challenging due to limited contextual knowledge, raising concerns about sustainability in responding to institutional changes. So we began to see potential benefits of exchanging country-specific knowledge across countries, and our experience in the following slide strengthens this view. So in December 2024, ROR was introduced into Web of Science, enabling organization-level publication searches using ROR IDs. Here is a real example. BIPM is the international organization that coordinates meteorology worldwide. And surprisingly, BIPM added ROR links for National Meteorology Institutes in their website. So using this, we were able to collect and compare meteorology research data from Web of Science. And this enabled collaboration network analysis and research output comparison. This kind of analysis was very hard before, but RORs enabled this analysis more easier than before. And changes with ROR 2. In our joint project with RIDE and CWTS last year, we recognized the importance of ROR for open science, offering fully transparent analytics. For open analytics-based analysis, ROR IDs are required, and open analytics relies on ROR for institution identification and its metadata. So in this project, we found that about 100 Korean organizations did not have ROR IDs. So without fixing this, we could not use OpenAlex or scoreboard. So yes, that's why. So we decided to act. In July 2025. We submitted a bulk file with 401 records to ROR, and that was 243 new organizations, including 100 organizations information for scoreboard and 158 modified records. We also added parent-child relationships, Korean names, and name variants to benefit stakeholders in the open science ecosystem. And most of the feedback has been incorporated with the help of Adam Buttrick and Riley Marsh. Thank you. After submitting the bulk data to ROR, we ran the analysis. And then in November 2025, we released the Web of Science-based KISTI Science and Technology Scoreboard. Now, research performance of Korean organizations can be examined and compared using multiple indicators on our website. The link is below, so you can access. Yeah, on this slide, you can see a detailed page for one organization, and each organization page now has a direct link to its ROR ID, ROR webpage. This link connects our internal analysis system to the global open data ecosystem. For us, this is very practical, and it allows others to trace the data in OpenAlex and check the sources and reuse the results. And we also made the raw data publicly available on Zenodo. This is part of our approach to open and transparent analysis. We plan to release the OpenAlex version in March this year, so you can see soon, very soon. So let me conclude. First, ROR is already widely adopted in major scientometric data sources, especially in Web of Science and OpenAlex. How we use it? We rely on global open science ecosystem to address contextual limits and institutional change. We enable sustainable analysis by tracking global organizations through ROR IDs. And this is very important point to us, for us. As a prosumer, we contribute to ROR by submitting updates and corrections for Korean organizations to support accurate measurement of research performance and evidence-based decision making. Yes, this is all. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Jungwoo. That was really fantastic to see. And I will mention, too, that I had not realized that BIPM had a public-facing web application that features ROR IDs that you can actually see linked to organizations. I remember that, how long ago was that, Adam? Maybe 2 years ago that you were doing quite a lot of work with the metrologists?
Yeah, the folks at BIPM were actually very thorough about and making sure we had really kind of comprehensive global representation of metrology organizations. So yeah, about 2 years ago, we went through and it was very ongoing. But yeah, we still get requests from them actually as new ones get added. So I was really excited to see that that work was appreciated and incorporated.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just have to say, Jungwoo, it's just really wonderful to hear that it really is making your analysis easier, that you're able to do things now that were more difficult for you before. That's really why we do all this.
Thank you. Thank you.
There is a question in the chat saying that even though KISTI has done this work with ROR, can each institution register child RORs by themselves? Absolutely, you can. Actually, not everyone knows this, but literally anyone can request a change to any ROR ID. You don't have to be affiliated with that organization. You don't have to be affiliated with KISTI or a national research organization. And that is because we review all these requests quite closely and we verify them against publicly available data, usually from an organization's website. So yes, Kazuki, you absolutely can request a child ROR ID, a ROR ID for any organization. And in fact, I'll type the link to the curation request form in here. But so, and then also if you go to our web search, on every ROR record, there is a link to that request form. So if you look at a record and say, my organization is missing, you can simply click on that link and request that change. Any other questions? One thing I'm interested to know is I'd like to ask all our presenters if you've learned anything from any of the other presenters on the panel. Have you learned new things about the way these other national entities are addressing these issues? Maybe we could start with you, Kazuhiro. Did you learn anything new from either Jungwoo or Clare?
Yep. Actually, I visited Australia last year, and I learned a lot regarding the PID in Australia. But I was very happy to see the details. So, and thank you, Clare, for your presentation. And also, Jungwoo, 안녕하세요. I didn't know almost all about Korea's situation, so that everything is new to me. But of course, you are very I am really impressed to have the scheme of handling and managing PIDs in details. And I know the counterpart of you in Japan, and I'm happy to connect. Maybe you know that Kosuke Tanabe, maybe attending here, and but anyway, so that I'm happy to have a collaboration with in a how can I say, invisible community in the East Asia to handle the PIDs more effectively, because each organization has each culture to foster their organizations themselves. So that's a very important and difficult point to control the structure of ROR, I believe, so that East Asia has its own culture to handle it together. So that's my impression. Thanks.
That's very fascinating. Clare, do you have any thoughts about the other presentations?
Yeah, I found them both super informative. I was really excited to hear about the work that's happening in Korea. Jungwoo, I was not aware of this work, and I have busily sent off some information to some of the data analysts in my team saying, check out this looks so cool. So I'm really excited to have seen that. And Kazuhiro, I'm really thrilled to hear that you're going to try and get a national kids strategy. I genuinely can't sing the praises of the difference that makes to getting everybody moving in the same direction. So that's really excited to hear about that.
That's great. And Jungwoo, we'll end by asking you if you learned anything from the other presentations.
Just a moment.
Mm-hmm. And while you're getting ready, I'll mention as well that we're perfectly happy to take other questions as well. And of course, you can always contact us at ROR at support@ror.org. And Riley has posted some other links that may help you keep connected with ROR.
Can I speak?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. I was very impressed by Japan's NISTEP dictionary before. It was also the starting point of our project. It seems they have been very preparing systematically and thoroughly for a very long time. So we wanna follow their Japanese project. So that was starting point. And I also impressed by Australia's systematic open science roadmap and their approach to conducting research evaluation from multiple perspectives. It's sometimes something we can definitely learn from. Yes, that's my thought.
Thank you for that. And we can just end up with a couple of questions that I see in the chat that are directed at Claire. PID strategy or ROR implementation from NHMRC. I'm guessing that the M stands for medical. I don't know if that's correct. Claire, would you
So
like
on
to?
mute. I'm so sorry. Yeah, it does. So it's the National Health and Medical Research Council. It's kind of our sister agency here in Australia that along with another agency called the Medical Research Future Fund manages medical grants in Australia. And yes, they did put out a PID action plan as well. And I think if you look at the two funders' PID action plans, you'll see what I mean by being able to move together, because there are differences in what each funder is doing, but they are all moving very clearly in that same direction towards those same 5 PIDs and really increasing uptake and use in Australia.
All right. Well, that's good to know. We are just at time at the top of our hour. Really heartfelt thanks to our presenters. I learned a great deal, and we are really appreciative of your support of ROR, and we hope that ROR can support you in your endeavors to make scholarly information better globally. Thank you all so much, and we'll hope to see you all at the next ROR event. Okay. Take care.
Thanks.
Thank you
Thank you,
very much.
everyone. Thank you.